Hey guys, it's Drew again from Drew Does Trucks. I have read over and over again in camper forums, in groups that I'm on Facebook, and even talking to people at campgrounds. They want to do more with inspecting and maintaining their campers, but they don't know what to do or where to get started. And they're paying places like Camping World, you know, $1,000 a year to do simple inspections and simple winterizing and de-winterizing procedures. So I'm going to try and do a series of videos just to show you exactly what you're looking for. We're going to start with our once or twice annually. I like to do this like 2 or 3 times a year, where we just walk around our camper. We get under our camper, and I've already done a video where I get on the roof and show you what I'm looking for on the roof. I will link to that above. That's a great video to show you roof maintenance, but this video is going to be even simpler. We're going to do a walk around inspection. We're going to get underneath. We'll call this like a level 1 inspection, and there's no reason not to be doing these 3 or 4 times every year, if not every single trip, because it literally takes 15 minutes. I'm also going to be releasing a part 2 in this, which is going to be an hub and brake maintenance. This has to be done once a year. It's very important. So your hub life, your wheel and tire life, your brake life, they are your camper life. Because if one of these critical components fails, guess what? You're going to be stuck on the side of the road, or worse, you're going to be in an accident, or your camper could even catch fire. And I don't want to scare you, but that's the reality of it. We see a lot of campers on the shoulder with these type of issues. And when these components go, if you blow a tire, or if you overheat a hub or a brake component, you know, you can really damage the side of your camper with tire debris, with or with fire damage. So they're not that hard to do. If you own basic mechanic tool set that you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's for probably under $100. I have some fancy tools that I like to use, like my Milwaukee Impact and stuff, but you don't need those. They just make it easier. So there are a couple things you'll need to do, or you'll need to have for this, and we'll go over that as we go through it. But hopefully this video helps you out. So check out part 1, which is going to be our general walk around, and once you finish that, I'll link at the end to part 2, which is going to be our hubs and our tire maintenance. All right, so we're going to do our 360 walk around. We start here at our coupler. What are we looking for? I personally choose to grease my couplers and my balls. It is recommended by Husky, which is the manufacturer of my weight distribution hitch. So we are going to check our coupler mechanism. We want to see that it is well lubricated, moves freely. We are going to check underneath. We want to make sure there's no excessive wear or rust. We're looking for any cracks in the welds. That looks fine. We're going to move down the sides of the camper. Okay, these are our weight distribution bars. Your weight distribution wrench has this little square thing at the end. Your weight distribution hitch uses square bolts. Why? Because you're supposed to check this every trip, and if you're not, you definitely need to do it annually. Really, that's something that needs done a couple times a year, because it will loosen up. You want to come back and check your battery box. Make sure your battery is securely mounted. Make sure it's not going anywhere. Make sure your wires aren't dragging. It's not a bad idea to stick your head under here and just check everything. Your propane lines run through here. Your low voltage wiring for your trailer harness. You want to pull your plug out. Check out your connectors. Are they corroded? Do they have a bunch of green stuff on here? This one's got just a little bit of corrosion on that one. We'll hit that with some contact cleaner. It'll be good for another few years. Then we're going to go around the sides of the camper. So we're working on a generator install, so we'll just ignore that. But we're looking at our trim. We're going to make sure there's no cracks in our sealant. So see, this is flaking away. That may need some new caulk applied. We'll probably recalc this before I put it away for the winter. We're going to look at our slide. You need to regularly lube these with slide lubricant. You can buy it in a spray can. All that does is keep that rubber freely moving over this. Make sure your seals are nice and pliable. These are soft. We're going to come underneath. If yours has a slide, all kinds of different slide mechanisms. Ours is electric. We've got an electric motor that spins these geared teeth back in there, and these are just rollers that it rolls on back here. So we want to check out this. I try and lubricate this with like machine oil. Some people use grease. I probably should use grease because you can tell these are getting a little rusted. So we'll put some grease on those as we find things to do. These are all your pivot points for your wire. This is like a brace that holds your wire to keep it up out of your mechanism. So you want to make sure all your bolts are tight. See how this bolt is bent? I don't know why that's bent, but that's going to limit that thing's ability to turn. So we'll grab a pair of pliers, we'll bend that back straight. We'll lubricate all these like with WD-40 or machine oil and make sure that they all have locking hardware on them, because we don't want those to back off. If this drops into this mechanism, it will destroy your wiring. Your slide will not move. You will be an unhappy camper. All right, come down here. This is, you can see how this is rusty. So this is the rod that your motor uses to draw the slide in and out. So we're going to go ahead and grease this too while we grease these teeth. That's fine. That's something he's done only about once a year. If you camp a whole lot, someplace where it's really, really rainy and you're getting a lot of spray up on these, because that'll be underneath your camper, you may want to grease them more than when it's once a year. These are adjustment bolts. You don't need to do anything with those. All you need to do is make sure they're not falling out. Over here, you're just looking at your skirts. A cracked skirt can catch the air and it can actually rip the entire skirt off, or it can do damage to your siding on your camper. This one here is cracked. It needs replaced. However, the bolts are all tight. I fixed it with, this is Gorilla Tape, which, as you can see, that needs reapplied. I need to order a new skirt for this. They're really expensive, so I haven't yet. Trying to get by. But if I hadn't duct taped this back part probably would have ripped off by now. So that'll get retaped. See what else. I'm going to go down here, and again, we're just looking for any cracked welds on the sides of the frame. We want to look at our dump stuff, and if you use your camper, you're going to know if your valves are bad or anything like that. If you see anything that's rusty or starting to rust, you can clean it and hit it with spray paint. Rust is always your enemy. And anytime you open a jack, you can see these have some oil residue on them. I try and keep these lubricated. I oil these probably 4 times a year because they're much easier to use when they're well oiled. If you have lights, you can plug your camper into your vehicle and do a walk around. You should be doing this every single trip though, checking those lights. And then that's pretty much it. You know, for your walk around, you're just looking for obvious stuff. I detailed how to do a roof inspection last year, so I'll link to that video. I'll try and put it up here. I'm not good at all the YouTube stuff, but the roof inspection is a more complicated thing. I'll try and do mine at the end of the season, because that's when you're getting ready to store it for the winter. That's when a lot of leaks are going to go undetected and do major damage. If you're camping during the summer, you're going to notice a leak pretty quick. And next we're going to go underneath the camper, and then we'll check our wheels and tires, which might be the most important part of this inspection. All right, I'm here working on my Wolfpack 25 Pack 12. This is a Forest River toy hauler camper, and a lot of people have been talking lately about inspections, seeing what's underneath your camper. And I'm betting that a lot of you guys don't take the time to actually get under here. And if you invest in one of these, this is a creeper from Harbor Freight. This is like 30 bucks, I think. Just makes it much easier, especially if you're on a paved surface. And you will find, you know, some really interesting things. A lot of people are appalled at the state of the wiring. Your propane's flowing through these. They used to put these in like galvanized lines, I think, but now they're raw steel, so this is rusty. Not that that's ever gonna rust through, but it just looks bad. So this camper gets used 4 seasons. Sorry, that's so loud. And this is your enclosed underbelly. So this is, in here we got some stuff in there. God only knows, but it's probably some of that foam, because that foam is everywhere. But this is your enclosed underbelly, so it does kick down right here. This is where all your holding tanks and stuff are. This particular model has heated holding tanks, so the whole underbelly is insulated. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. So this is your trailer frame. These are your leaf springs. These need inspected at least annually. So just wanted to show you what to look for when you're inspecting these. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look where this bracket is welded to the frame. Sometimes these don't get welded very well. That is subject to a lot of stress, so this can crack. That will be a very bad day if that breaks. Second thing, these leaf springs should be banana shaped. It's okay if they're just a little bit flat where this big leaf is on your pack, but you don't want them to come down and deform right here. You'll see some people's will come and they have like a hump or especially you don't want to crack. While you're down here, you want to check these U-bolts. These are called your U-bolts. You want to make sure that they're all tight. You don't need to actually put a socket on them, but you need to make sure that none of these nuts have backed off. And it also gives you a good chance just to visually inspect. These are your backing plates for your brakes. And I'll get into the other side here in a bit, but this is just your initial underbody inspection. You want to check your tubes, make sure they're not corroded. So we're going to go around and check all 4 of these axles for the things we talked about. Check our welds, weld springs, U-bolts, all that. And then because the axles are in the way, you have to scoot out to get her on the other side. So like, you know, you'll find little things like this. There's a spring hanging out, and here is what it used to go to, which means this is flapping when we go down the road, which means this could break. Now, even though it's bent, that instead behind it still holds it in place, but that's going to need screwed back in, and it's going to need something on the back of it to hold it. So I'll get to that in a second. We're going to be fixing this later. I'll do a video on that. It's from a blown out tire. And once you get back here, of course, they make it harder for you. You got your fold out stairs for the garage. This particular camper was upgraded to the more ride step above, but it had come from the factory with the fold down steps, so they're still in the way. They sell a really nice kit to turn that into a toolbox, but it's kind of expensive. This is a tube that we bought to hold our sewer hose, and I really like that, but it's also in my way. So if you ever need to get any information off of your axles, it's a good idea to come down here while the thing's still a couple years old and take a picture of this sticker, because this is going to have all your capacities. This is a 5,200 pound axle, which is essentially the same as this 6,000, just different thickness tubing. So again, we're down here just checking our springs. So this spring right here, it's okay, but I don't know if you can tell that it comes down, and it almost has like a little recurve to it. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. If that gets worse, we'll replace that spring. And got one left. That one looks like it's pretty good. U-bolts are good, and our welds are good. So we've got our dump tube in the way on this side. So no matter which way you go on these, you know, you're bound to run into some. So while you're down there, there's a good chance to check your spare tire. If yours hangs underneath the belly like ours does. You know, we have a TPMS system, but we don't have a sensor on this. So like the first thing I'm noticing, we're gonna have to crank this jack up because this is bouncing down here, so that's no good. And inflation seems good, but we'll go ahead and check it with the gauge while I'm tightening that up. So, you know, just little things that we find when we go over this, that's not a big deal. But if your spare tire bounced off and you needed it, that would be a big deal. And if the spare tire bounced off and went through someone's windshield and killed them, that would be a really big deal. I mean, I think most of us would feel terrible if that happened. So while we're down here, we're going to do the same thing from the outside. You will see a lot of these fail if you stay on the internet long enough. These are your fuel lines, the gasoline fuel lines for the generator. They're right here by the tires. It's a good idea to check those, make sure they're not flapping, rubbing. So like this right here, those can actually come up and rub against these self-penetrating bolts. I don't like that. I may add another clamp there to keep those below it. Checking our welds, all the hangers, you got to check the welds. They don't fail all at once. Usually they start to crack. Catch them in time, you can grind the weld out, drill the end of the crack. If it's in the metal, get them welded up by a fab shop. Maybe pay a couple $100. If you don't catch them in time, they completely rip off. You know, crash your camper, ruin your trip. Or even if it doesn't, you know, they're gonna have to redo everything. So you're gonna pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars, maybe end up on a tow truck. So I'm gonna get into this next. We're gonna pull our lug nuts, our wheel off, and we've got to pull our hub off, and I'm going to show you how to inspect the inside components, just like a quick and dirty thing. It's something that everybody needs to do at least every year on their camper or really any other trailer you got.